Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, my sin, my soul. Lolita, the tip of my tongue taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap at 3 on the teeth. Lolita. She was low, plain low in the morning, standing 4 feet 10 in one sock. She was Lola in slacks. She was Dolly at school, and she was Dolores on the dotted line. But in my arms, she was always Lolita. Hi, I'm Scout. This video is intended for my psychology class, but I'm putting it public on YouTube because I like making videos. This is cool. What I'll be dissecting today in this video is the Lolita character type and how it originated in the 1955 novel Lolita by Vladimir Nobokov, and how that character has been presented in the 2 film adaptations of the book, and a lot of internet culture and a lot of internet aesthetics that derive, maybe not directly, but indirectly from the idea of the Lolita character type. The term Lolita was actually coined by this novel. The term Lolita being a precociously seductive young girl. This word was used as a nickname for the young 12-year-old Dolores Hayes. It was given to her by the fictional writer Humbert Humbert, a pen name, as a term of his affections, his very much illegal affections. The novel is supposed to be the writings of Humbert Humbert, in which he presents his side of the story, to say the least, in his sexual misconduct towards Dolores Hayes, and how he believes that Dolores was the mastermind behind it all, that he had no other choice, that he was manipulated into taking away the innocence of a 12-year-old girl. Lolita in the novel, while keeping in mind this novel is written by the perspective of a very, very unreliable narrator, she is described back in that little section that I just read as being 4 feet 10 and standing in one sock. If that does not paint the most childish, girlish picture that you can think of in your head, then I don't really know what to tell you, to be honest. And throughout the novel, we are being directly fed this imagery by Humbert Humbert, in which he sexualizes very simple things that Dolores does. Very quick disclaimer, when I say Lolita, I am referring to Dolores Hayes. I'm trying to refer to her as Dolores, but it's kind of hard when the entire novel refers to her as Lolita. And when everything you've ever read about it refers to her as Lolita. So, when I say Lolita, I'm most likely referring to Dolores, unless I directly say the book. Anyways, back to it. In the scene where we are introduced to Dolores Hayes, she is seen sunbathing in her backyard, and she looks up at Humbert Humbert, kind of like this over her sunglasses. And this actually brings up a very common misconception that there is with this story, with the book, with the novel Lolita. Think of Lolita. Think of the aesthetic of the Lolita. Think of the symbols and the imagery that you come across. Think about the covers and whatnot of Lolita, of Dolores. Do you or do you not? In that scene where she's looking at him, above her sunglasses, what kind of sunglasses are they? Think about it for a minute. If you said heart sunglasses, you're not completely wrong. In the novel, she is wearing normal rectangular / square black sunglasses. One of the covers for it, she's wearing these heart-shaped sunglasses. And those don't exist. This was written in 1955. Who the fuck is wearing heart-shaped sunglasses in 1955? There's images such as the heart-shaped sunglasses. There are images such as the girl with the bright red lips holding the lipstick, which is actually a sexual innuendo. It's really gross. But a lot of the imagery that we see surrounding this young girl is incredibly, sexualized. especially a lot of the book covers for it. Vladimir Nobokov, when he originally published Lolita, the cover of the book was just green. It was plain green, and it said Lolita, it said the title, that was it. Vladimir Nobokov directly said that in the future, when this book is published and printed and spread who knows where, that he did not want any depictions of a young girl on the cover. And what do we get? The 50th anniversary edition. What do we get? A pair of lips. I sat down with a friend a while back and we went through all of the different covers for this novel. And oh my god, some of them were really, really gross. Like, there's some where she's just straight up nude. There's that. There's one with a pair of lips, but instead of it being... It's turned the other way. And you can see what it's trying to do. It's just gross. There is a lot of gross imagery. And there's a lot of them with, like, a schoolgirl where it's just showing, like, it's like the bottom of her skirt and then her legs. There's a lot of legs imagery. That's kind of weird. I'm not really sure what that's all about. And to take notice and draw inspiration from a 2013 research article, if you look at just the timeline of the covers, a lot of the more crazy ones tend to be later down the line in history. It's like, since the publication in 1955, throughout the years, the sexualization of this book and of the cover has been accepted. And I think I'll touch on that later, but the sexualization of this story has become so accepted that a lot of people don't actually know what this story is about anymore. And I say we'll touch on that later, but I think I'm going to touch on that right now. The way that this novel has been so incredibly misinterpreted and twisted throughout history, and whether that's just malintent or people being completely illiterate is up to debate. There's no real direct point that you can look at and be like, this was the cause of why it's been dragged through the mud, but it's not something that you can say, oh, it's not happening. It's absolutely happening. Lolita is one of our wonderful banned books. If you look at any banned book list, I'm telling you, Lolita will be on there. It will be there. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the character and her portrayal in the movie's adaptations. Now, the first movie, a lot of people are not aware of. It was originally directed by, oh my god, I'm blanking. The original movie was actually directed by Stanley Kubrick, but it really wasn't successful at the time. And there was just a lot of issues behind the scenes with censorship laws, with drama with him and Nobokov. They had to change a whole ton of the story just because of censorship laws. But Lolita and how she's portrayed in that movie, they actually age her up. I believe they age her up to the age of 16, which is, I mean, it's not weird, but it's just kind of like, oh, okay. So Lolita in this movie, she is portrayed as 16. I believe the actress for her was actually 14, but that's besides the point. She, if you just look at her, that is a grown woman. I'm so sorry, but that girl, the way they dolled her up, and I believe it was done very on purpose. I believe it's done very intentionally within a lot of adaptations of Lolita, in which they make her dress so much more mature and woman-like, to throw off audiences and to make them forget that what they're looking at is supposed to be a 12-year-old girl. The most popular adaptation of Lolita, the film that everybody knows and I hope doesn't love, but we're gonna get to that in a minute. Lolita is dressed in, like, I don't even know how to explain it. She is dressed in, like, a very, sort of, like, cottage-y, cowgirl, like, picnic table. There's a lot of, like, gingham and, like,
plaid and just very girly, a lot of frills, a lot of ruffles. She's in a lot of like these two-piece outfits that make her seem much more grown up. And I've noticed this while I was doing my research with the novel and just with all of this, that Lolita in the novel is described as having these like bright red lips. But in this movie, she's wearing this like bright red lipstick. And I'm not saying like, oh, there's just like a little bit of like stuff like on like her lips. No, I mean she's wearing full on lipsticks, like liner, lipstick, everything, like plumping lip gloss. Like, I don't think that she, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that anywhere in the novel that it says, oh yeah, she's like wearing lipstick. But like that never happened. If she was like playing dress up. Because she's 12. I'm sorry. I'm just very, very passionate about this.
But my point is that this movie and the aesthetic and the fashion that is put around Dolores, this has actually made an incredible impact in a lot of like online like communities and whatnot. Specifically, if you go and look at Tumblr, which is a blog site. People can set up their own blogs for different things. It tends to be a lot of fandom related stuff. But when this movie came out, and even still following after this movie, if you go and like look at Tumblr, like there's so much imagery taken from this movie, and like people talking about the fashion. There's even people talking about how they wish that they had the relationship that Dolores and Humbert had. People even calling Humbert, like, handsome and, like, oh, I'd let him do it. Like, would you? Would you? But let's be honest, even if you would, it's not like you have a choice. He only goes for 12-year-olds. Tumblr has been, I would say the worst, at least in online, like, internet culture, at proprieting the idea that this is a love story. That being said, on the back of this novel, there is a review from the Vanity Fair, and it says, "The only convincing love story of our century." That kind of leaves me at a loss for words. I really don't know what to say about that. So I'm just going to let you sit with that. That the Vanity Fair left a review on Lolita saying that it was the most convincing love story. But just a few minutes ago, before starting this recording, I went onto Tumblr and I searched in the word Lolita. And I swear to God, one of the first images is a girl in, like, a bra with, like, her boobs out. It was very much, like, clearly, like, sexual, like, imagery. Like, it was clearly meant for something else. And if you just scroll through the tag of Lolita, there's just a lot of, like, this coquette aesthetic with, like, lace and, like, lacy garments and, like, lingerie, and I even saw one image of, like, a garter belt. There's a lot of, like, Mary Janes and, like, a lot of, like, this girlish aesthetic being tied to it, and it's such a strange thing to look at. And like I said, there's still a lot of people who look at this Lolita aesthetic and they strive to be it. They strive to embody it, and it's really, really concerning the amount of girls who look at this story and call it a love story and want to have this kind of relationship, and it's not okay. There are a lot of edits on TikTok of the movie adaptation of Lolita that very much, like, romanticize, putting it to, like, love songs and all this. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. This, like, icks me out so badly. It's so gross. But, like, my point being is just the internet culture around this novel and around this movie is so weird. It's crazy, like, upkeep of this idea that's been going on since 1955, that this relationship between a middle-aged man and a 12-year-old girl is somehow okay. How he literally kidnaps her, who does the most unspeakable things that a grown man can do to a
12-year-old girl. And it's such a strange phenomenon. And I believe that the fact that this story has been dragged on and misinterpreted for so long is because that a lot of the young women who are fueling this idea of being a Lolita and that being Lolita is a good thing is that they likely, now I don't have a lot of real evidence for this, just kind of speculation and things that I have seen on my times at the internet, so I can't really give you a direct reference for this, but they likely just see themselves in her shoes because they are victims. Because they are, in one way or another, they are Lolita. They were, at a point, taken advantage of by a grown man who they thought was a good person, who they loved and trusted, and they don't really understand how to deal with that trauma, so they cope with it in a very strange way. I don't want to say it's wrong because they're not hurting anybody directly, but when you keep fueling the idea that a story about a predator is a love story, you really start to do some bad things with the psyche of yourself and the possible impact that that narrative can have on others. Because, I mean, let's be honest, this novel, published 1955, the fact that I'm sitting here in 2024 and I'm still talking about how this novel has impacted a lot of young women in ways that it was not meant to, I think that says enough. I think that says more than that I could ever say, and it doesn't even have words to explain it. And I believe that the misinterpretation of this novel, that the misinterpretation of Dolores Hayes, the misinterpretation of Miss Young Lolita, the misinterpretation of the love that Humbert feels for this 12-year-old girl has done irreparable damage that I don't know if we could ever come back from because of the stigma surrounding this book, because of the 2 film adaptations that there are, because of the incredibly crazy internet culture around it and the romanticization and the aesthetic appeal. So I really do believe it is almost impossible to come back from the incredible misinterpretations and misunderstandings of this novel. But what I do think is possible is doing things like this project, like this video, and being able to just tell people and explain to people that, hey, that novel, it's not what you think. It's not some weird, perverted sex novel. It's actually the opposite. It's a tall tale. It's a warning from Vladimir Nobokov of what could happen, of what does happen. And that's it, really. That's the end of my video.